If you grew up in Jefferson City, Missouri, or really anywhere in mid-Missouri, there's a good chance that you've been to the Capitol Mall. Whether it was your first job, a Saturday afternoon at the food court, catching a movie, or just walking laps with your grandmother before the stores opened. This mall has been a fixture in the community for nearly 5 decades. But Capitol Mall's story is more than just retail. It's the story of a small state capital trying to grow, of a region that needed a gathering place, and of the broader rise and gradual transformation of the American shopping mall. Today, we're going to tell you that story from the very beginning. To understand why Capitol Mall was built, you first have to understand the city it was built in. Jefferson City is one of the smallest state capitals in the United States by population. It was created from scratch, quite literally purpose-built, by the Missouri State Legislature back in 1821, as a centrally located seat of government on the banks of the Missouri River. For most of its history, the local economy revolved almost entirely around state government, with the prison system and a handful of manufacturers rounding things out. By the 1970s, Jefferson City had a stable but modest economy. The downtown corridor along High Street had long served as the commercial heart of the city, but like downtown areas across America, it was beginning to feel like the strain of suburban growth and changing shopping habits. People had cars, and they wanted convenience. Strip malls were popping up all over the country, but the Jefferson City area still had nothing on the scale of a fully enclosed shopping mall. The residents wanted a true mall experience and had to make a trip for it elsewhere. Now enter General Growth Development, a Des Moines-based real estate firm, and the development arm of what would eventually become General Growth Properties, one of the largest mall operators in the country. They saw opportunity in Jefferson City. The city was underserved, the population was loyal, and there was a large amount of land available on the western edge of town, out alongside Country Club Drive near the intersection with West Truman Boulevard, only about 4.5 miles from the state capitol building. With plans underway, construction begun, and in February of 1978, Capitol Mall officially opened its doors. The first phase of the mall was a single-level complex covering approximately 335,000 leasable square feet, built on a 48.9-acre plot. For Jefferson City, it was transformational. The anchor tenant was Sears, a 74,300 square foot store that served as the mall's western anchor and drew in shoppers from all across the region. But Sears wasn't alone. The tenants who opened alongside the mall in '78 read like a time capsule of the late 70s. Thomas Jefferson Men's, Maurice's, Sofro Fabrics, Osco Drug, Hallmark, Orange Julius, you name it. The mall quickly became the social and commercial hub of mid-Missouri. It wasn't just a place to shop, it was the place to be. On the weekends, the parking lot filled up. Teenagers cruised the corridors. Families made a day out of it. For a city the size of Jefferson City, having an enclosed, climate-controlled mall felt like a genuine civic achievement, and the success of the opening phase made one thing very clear. They were gonna need some more space. The early 1980s brought significant growth to the mall. The first major addition came on January 7th of 1981, when JCPenney opened a 75,200 square foot single-level store attached to the mall. With both Sears and JCPenney in place, the cinema was now added to the mix adjacent to the mall, and now the leasable square footage climbed to nearly 500,000 square feet. It was supporting dozens of specialty stores, but the expansions only kept coming. In March of 1985, a 70,000 square foot Dillard's opened on the east end of the mall, rounding out the department store trifecta. With that addition, Capitol Mall now held approximately 560,000 leasable square feet, and was home to 61 stores and services. At its peak in the 1980s, Capitol Mall was a thriving regional destination, It really had no major mall competitors nearby. Your only options were to go northwest to Columbia Mall or southwest for beach outlets. For everybody nearby, Capitol Mall was the clear choice. But now the 1990s. That time brought a wave of consolidation to the American mall industry, and the Capitol Mall was swept alongside it. In late 1993, a joint venture involving Australia's Westfield, Des Moines-based General Growth Properties, and New York City's Whitehall Street Real Estate Limited Partnership acquired 19 malls across 6 states. Properties previously owned by Centermark Properties, also known as May Centers. Capitol Mall was among the assets in that deal. The malls were then divided up for management, with General Growth Properties taking the Columbia Mall under its wing. They were, at its height, the second largest mall operator in the U.S., and Capitol Mall was a small but steady performer in its vast portfolio. The mall continued operating through the 90s and 2000s as a community staple, though like many regional malls of its era, it faced the growing pressures of the changing retail times. But the question wasn't whether the mall would face its challenges. That was just inevitable. But the real question was how it was going to respond to them. A turning point came in December of 2012, when the General Growth Properties sold the mall to the Farmer Holding Company, a Jefferson City-based firm. For the first time in the mall's history, it was owned by the people who were part of the community it served. The following year, in 2013, the new owners came forward with an ambitious vision. They applied to the city for approval to build a 127-room hotel and a 61,000 square foot conference center at the mall. Each estimated cost would be around $14 million. The idea was to transform the property into more than just a retail outlet, but to make it more of a hospitality hub for the region. Ultimately, the project was never built, but the ambition behind it signaled that the new owners were thinking differently about the mall's future. What did materialize was the substantial renovation that happened in January 2015. Interior and exteriors got a facelift. $36 million later, everything was updated. The parking lot was repaved, exteriors were redone, interiors were redone, and even a couple new stores, like Ross Dress for Less, opened. But this is where it gets a little interesting. With this renovation, in my opinion, the mall honestly just looks bland and boring. I've been to so many malls over the last 9 years, and just seeing the unimpressive white walls, no colors, just bland boringness of the place really stood out in a very different way. I mean, yeah, it looks modern, but that's not always a good thing. The renovations wouldn't help its losses, though. No history of the mall would be complete without acknowledging one of the most significant losses. In March of 2017, the Capitol Mall Sears would close, one of the 42 Sears locations announced at that time. From there, the mall just kept declining. While yes, it did obtain some new stores like Party City and Joann Fabrics and Dunham Sports, all those were accessible through the outside of the mall. You didn't have to actually go into the mall itself to access these stores. But then another loss came in November of 2019, when the Dillards would downgrade to a clearance center. And while yes, I've gotten some flack for this, for calling it a downgrade, but history has shown us that when a Dillard's becomes a clearance center, it's essentially their last hope. It's a chance to turn the store around instead of just closing it. But it wouldn't be all bad, because the Sears location got turned into this thing called Wipro. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. But it's a healthcare solutions innovation lab, which, okay, sure, that's totally a worthwhile replacement for a mall, but hey, I'm just a stupid public school dropout, so hey. Every time I've visited the Capitol Mall, since 2019, there's always more and more stores that are gone. I don't know how much longer this mall can handle its closures. It's not the same Capitol Mall that opened with great fanfare in 1978. And I guess it doesn't need to be. What it is and what it has remained through the ownership changes, closures, and renovations is just a community staple, a place that Mid-Missouri residents still think of as theirs. From its origins as a bold retail gamble by a Des Moines development firm, through its golden years in the 80s, its ownership changes, its renovations, and its adaptations to a changing world, Capitol Mall's story is really just about Jefferson City itself, the city that has always had to work just a little harder to thrive, and has largely succeeded in doing so.